Hello, and welcome to Seriously Pointless Conversations About Culture, the podcast where myself and a few of my friends get together and discuss nerdy things. Just a reminder, if you like what you're listening to, please subscribe to Seriously Pointless Conversations YouTube channel, or you can find us on your favorite podcasting apps. Thank you for your support. Without you, none of this would be possible. Thanks for coming by. Now let's get into the episode. Hi, and welcome to Seriously Pointless Conversations About Culture, your Seriously Pointless podcast that has all your awesome, geeky, and nerd information that is coming from you from the Midwest. And I am joined today by my host, Jackie, my co-host, Jackie. Sorry. What's up?
Good morning.
Afternoon. Whatever it is anymore. Mm-hmm. It all runs together anymore. So, how you been?
Oh, pretty good.
Good?
Just living the dream.
Living the dream, man. I don't know. I don't know how everyone is, but when we're recording this, we're just getting done with all the election stuff, and I just feel drained. And I'm kind of glad that I have something to kind of fall back onto, say, possibly a podcast, to just kind of just like veg out for a little bit and not think about anything for a little bit. So it's kind of what you've been doing, just kind of keep doing something else to keep you preoccupied a little bit, or what?
I don't know. It's between that and COVID. It's just too much stress and upset.
I get it.
No opinion. I don't want to talk about politics or COVID.
That's fine. I know you've been busy reading a whole bunch. You just got done with the last Dresden book. What are you? I saw you read Dresden File book. Yeah.
Battleground.
Did you like it? Like the ending?
I did. I was pretty mad about something that happened. And
no spoilers.
No, I'm not going to spoil it. But if something doesn't change with the next 3 books, I'm going to be really pissed. And I don't like what Butcher did, but he did what he did.
But it made you feel something, though, didn't it?
Well, though? Yeah, definitely. But it also was like, that was done in like, it was the most pitiful way possible.
Ooh,
but
she's coming for you, Jim. She's coming for you.
No, I was very angry, but that means it's a good book that it inspired that. But now I'm reading the next Cormoran Strike novel, which is Troubled Blood.
So that's the other series, the
by
detective
Robert
series.
Galbraith,
who's
but
it's
J.K.
Rowling. Yeah, that's her detective series. If you guys haven't checked that out, it's a really good series. I just got done with the first one. After about 3 tries of getting into it, I finally finished it.
And it was Cuckoo's Calling.
Cuckoo's Calling was the first one. It's really, really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I like it too. She's on the 5th one now, and that's Troubled Blood, and enjoying it. Definitely murder mystery sort of thing, but it's interesting because this mystery happened I think 40 years ago.
Yeah,
you were telling me
it was a cold case. Yeah,
it's a cold case, and it's the first cold case that Strike has had to try and do.
Yeah,
but it's good.
Usually, I don't like detective novels and murder mystery things because of my nature of my job a little bit. But it was good. I liked it. I got sucked into it pretty easily. So I was on the 4th try, of course, but it was really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, but other than that, you've been doing anything else? Been trying to stay, go for walks and things like that? Anything crazy?
No.
Nothing? No, you haven't been skydiving or like that?
No, just living.
Just living,
So what coasting. Are we talking about today?
Well, we're about to get there. Just hold your horses. This is a new thing we've been starting to do, trying to see how everybody's doing, just to catch up with everybody. I actually, if you care at all, do you care at all?
Not really. No, I'm kidding. Tell me what you've been doing.
Cold. You're ice queen today, man.
I forget that this is what you do now, and you should just limit it to less than 10 minutes, right?
It's going to be less than 10 minutes the way you're acting towards me. You're going to cut me off real quick here.
Anyway, go ahead. What have you been doing? Sorry, there I'll be the nice person, the nice host.
Man, look at you. So I have actually been trying to catch up on a little bit of Penny Dreadful. I don't know if you've seen me watching it.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I know what it is.
If you guys like macabre stuff, it's almost like if anybody's ever seen the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie, it's what that should have been almost. So it's a kind of except it's set in the world of Victorian London, and it's really a lot darker than the comic books were even. So
it's based off books.
yeah, so there's Victor Frankenstein is in it, but they do like some twists to it and things like that. And there is Mina Harker and all kinds of other stuff. It's really cool. It's really enjoyable. This is my third time watching it. So the original series has 3 seasons, so it's really good. I've been doing that, and I've also been really digging into Medieval, which is it's an old PS2 game that has been revamped, remastered a little bit, and they put it on the PS4. I got it for free off of PS Now. I've been playing that a little bit. It's a nice little kind of dorky little PS2 era game that I've enjoyed. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been into recently. Actually,
and TikTok.
Well,
the rabbit hole.
TikTok is it's a dumpster fire and a rabbit hole. It all rolled into one. So, I'm just saying. But other than that, I was watching Spirited Away, which was for this podcast actually the other night. So I was trying to catch up, get a few notes
refresher memory.
Yeah, because it's been a little bit since we've watched it. So I remember we first started watching it. When did we first watch it together? Because you're the one that introduced me to everything Miyazaki, like we said earlier in the other podcast.
I don't remember. I know I saw it back in... It was like 8th grade or freshman year of high school, a real long time ago, and we didn't start dating till senior year, so it would have been much later. I don't remember watching it with you, to be honest. Sorry.
I know we've watched it since we were married. I know that.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I watched it with you, I thought, was like, this is a really, really interesting kind of concept about it. The whole thing is like, so that was kind of the first time that we really saw that. I think it was whenever you showed me, because I'd never really heard of Miyazaki before, unfortunately, which is kind of sad.
Probably watched it like over the summer at my mom and dad's house.
It's probably on a VHS, probably.
No.
No?
I don't think so. I don't remember. We don't own it on VHS.
No, I didn't know or not, but mostly what I've seen it on is HBO. They have the whole collection on HBO now. All of Studio Ghibli's.
Films?
Yeah, they're all on there now. So
Good to know.
That's why that's honestly the main reason why I got it. Honestly, is because I knew we were going to be doing these, and I really, really enjoy all those movies. Mm-hmm. So
Porco Rosso is on there even? Oh, that would be a nice one to see again.
Yeah, like I said, I was telling you, they're all on here. And let me pull it up for you, let you show you real quick. But so I know, let me get to the bottom of the screen here. And you're just being ornery.
So you didn't officially say it, but we're talking about Spirited Away today.
I did.
Yay.
I did earlier.
You kind of made a mention, I thought, but I didn't know if that was part of your intro or a real thing.
It's always the real thing, Jackie. We always do the real thing here. No fake stuff here. It's all real. You're just like, this is just going on way too long as it is. So, but yeah. So obviously, like you said, we are going to be talking about Spirited Away today, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it as much as we have. So kind of get into it. Spirited Away is a Miyazaki movie. It was created by Hayao Miyazaki. Hayao, I apologize. Hayao Miyazaki through Studio Ghibli, which is a Japanese animation company. The original concept was developed by Mr. Miyazaki whenever he became suddenly kind of burnt out on because he for a while there, all of his first films were kind of geared on like younger children, and except for like maybe Nausicaa a little bit. But he kind of got burnt out on that because that's what I think the company was really kind of pushing a little bit.
So because we've already talked about My Neighbor Totoro, and that was one of his first big ones. Nausicaa was his first film, but that was one, well, I guess you could argue he did things before that, but that was like he wrote the novel itself, the graphic novel. That was like his story, and that one is definitely more adult themed. But then you're right, all the ones after that, most of them
like they said. They even have some on here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm showing her.
Totoro.
I'm showing her the screen.
HBO screen with the Ghibli movies.
They even have some on here that I don't think I've seen before. When Marini was there.
What?
That's what it says. Marnie. I didn't want to say it wrong.
I don't think that's a Miyazaki film. I saw my neighbors.
It says
the
it's on there.
Yamadas.
It's set as Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, well, because they do other films too.
Like they have Ocean Waves, Only Yesterday, Pompoko from Abakakiville,
Pompoko.
And my neighbors, the Yamadas.
Yeah, those ones were not Miyazaki films.
Yeah. Obviously, those are on the bottom part of the
Pompoko,
screen, so.
that's a whole wow. Let's not even touch that.
You want to talk about raccoons with balls?
No, go back. And they're not raccoons. They're
whatever they are.
What are they called? They're like
We talk about going on tangents.
Yeah, it's like a separate species that just lives in Japan, I think. Anyway, go ahead and talk about the background of Spirited Away. You said he started doing this because he was burnt out on kids' films.
It just seems like it. I mean, because
Right.
that's kind of what I was reading a little bit, and he said that in an interview after a while after this movie came out, and he vividly remembers because he goes through these introspective periods in his life when he's really looking for something to make a film or a concept to make. You notice that he does that. He'll take a good year just to sit and think about what he wants to make.
Well, like the blue phase, like Van Gogh or Picasso. Like the different artists go through the different phases.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because he's an artist.
And he almost seems to really do that. And so he even in an interview, he talks about how whenever he was younger, he would often go up on vacations to a mountainous area, mountain region with his family. And it was a mountain cabin, and he would always have some friends of the family would be there too, along with them. And these were all girls, and so I'm assuming he was probably got one boy amongst 5 girls. And so he really wanted to make a movie or a film for these friends that he had during this time period. And so he started to really kind of start to dig into what did I do while I was up there? Well, apparently he read a lot of shoujo manga, which was very prevalent whenever he was younger, because they still had these kinds of manga, but it's essentially like our comic books. It's what it was. So they would have it in short little pamphlets and things like that. But you know what shoujo is?
How do you spell that?
Shoujo. It's SHOJO.
I think it's shoujo.
Shoujo.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're saying it in a Spanish accent.
That's probably is.
Yeah, I mean I've heard of that, but I'm not super familiar with manga. That's not the one what is One Piece or Inuyasha?
Inuyasha is
that shoujo?
Kind of.
Because that's definitely a love story.
So that would be that's kind of be more of
One
shoujo.
Piece is an action.
Yeah,
thing.
So they have it where
I forget the name of because there's a more action based one versus a more romance.
They have it mostly where some are geared more towards the younger women, younger girls, and some that are geared towards younger boys.
Yeah.
Which you have things like Shonen Jump, which is
Shonen. Yeah, that's what I was
Shonen Jump. Yeah. Which is Shonen manga is really geared towards the action oriented Yeah, I must grow to be the stronger of the two,
Transformers.
Things like that.
That
Naruto,
just makes me think of Michael
all that
Bay
stuff.
Transformers.
Yeah, that's all kind of geared towards that, yeah. So,
anyway.
he really started, when he remembered whenever he was on these vacations with his friends, they would bring this shoujo with them.
Shoujo, because they were all girls.
Yeah, they were all girls.
He was reading more
And he would pick it up just to read it because he was curious, like most kids are. And he would find that most of the time the protagonists in these, younger female protagonists, were either just the subjects of crushes or romance. And so he was like, well, why can't they be like the shonen characters where they go on these great adventures and become, heroes? And so he kind of had a thought that, had this thought process in his mind. And so he said, he kind of in an interview later on after the movie had come out several years later, he believed that this wasn't in the spirit of his friends, because he remembers all of his, some of these younger girls being very adventurous and being very forward and very heroine almost like that. They're very almost heroine, heroic in a sense. And he see that he wanted to create a young heroine to so that people could look up to, so these young women could look up to. So that's kind of where this concept kind of came about. I feel
like he does a good job in his films of, you have Nausicaa, even in Porco Rosso you have Fio, the girl, like in My Neighbor Totoro, the two girls. Like he likes having female protagonists, and in a lot of the movies they're not really love interests.
No. Well, I mean, it's like in Nausicaa, like because that's my favorite Miyazaki film.
Yeah, there's no romance going on.
None whatsoever. And that's what it just goes to show you, is that you don't have to have a male-oriented hero in a film to make it a great film. And he does such an amazing job of developing those characters, and he does it in this in Spirited Away amazingly.
He does.
So the whole time while he's trying to come up with this idea of like the storyline and things like that, he pitches a couple ideas to Studio Ghibli, and they don't stick. So apparently he had one early on whenever they first created Studio Ghibli. They were like, no man, we don't like the idea. It was actually based on a popular Chinese children's book called Fantasy Town in the Fog. Which can you see that? So like,
yeah,
that's kind of almost what this is.
Kind of what happens. They go into, in the English dub they say it's an abandoned amusement park, like an abandoned theme park, but like this giant bathhouse, but
so that's
middle of nowhere.
Another thing too.
This abandoned place, all these buildings.
Yeah. So the whole so this is literally a synopsis of that book. A sixth grade girl, I think they call her Lena, is what they translate her to, traveled to a small town called Misty Valley at the suggestion of her father during summer vacation. Because the Valley of the Mist is a little known place, it took Lena a lot of effort to get there, and found that it was a wonderful town and like a different world. When Lena went to live in the manor of an old woman named Pickett in the town, she learned that she had to exchange work for the right to live. In the course of her work, Lena came into contact with various characters in the Valley of the Mist, slowly letting her heart grow. So you can see how it's kind of a very loose...
Like similar, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of connections in there, like a loose adaptation of it almost, because you have in the other one, since she's not a spirit like all the other ones that are there.
She's a human.
She's a human there, and they're like, well, if you're going to stay here, you have to work for your keep if you're going to stay here, kind of thing. So it's just a very interesting kind of like correlation that, obviously he already had this concept set up how he wanted to do it. So whenever he gets into that third proposal, which was right around early 1999, I think it's when he was.
Yeah, in like 2000.
Well, 2000 is when production starts. So he goes the third pitch in early 1999, and it hits at home. He calls it Shinin Chihiro's Spirited Away. Is that the actual title of the film? And that's where you get that whole bathhouse scene. The whole bathhouse. They call it an amusement park, but it's essentially centered around an old bathhouse in Miyazaki's hometown. And so that's where it's an old style Japanese bathhouse. Yeah. And so whenever they saw that's what they wanted to center it around, they were like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think in the English dub, I think that because at least in the United States, bathhouses, that sort of thing, that is not something that we have. So they probably said amusement park just because that was the closest thing that based on what everything looked like. Oh, we'll just call it this because American U.S. audiences can relate to that.
Like saunas, maybe, but it
not for really, the whole family.
It's not for the whole family, and doesn't really translate the same, does it really?
No, but seeing things like Spirited Away, I kind of want to go to a bathhouse in Japan because that looks fun.
Yeah, because I really want to go and see all the naked old guys just sitting there.
I mean, I guess that'd be on you. Like, I don't really care about that. But if that's something you're into, like, I'm sure that could be arranged.
I'm sure they don't really care all that much. But either way, so whenever they started production, like I was telling you, in 2000, Walt Disney actually approached Studio Ghibli and were like, hey...
The company, right?
The Walt Disney Company.
Yeah.
Because at this time, Walt Disney
I
Pictures...
was like,
Walt Disney had been dead for a while.
A long time.
So the reason they approached him on this end was because of John Lasseter.
Yeah, so he was a big fan.
Yeah, you know who John Lasseter is?
Yeah, he's the one that does the voice in every single Pixar film. He's a voice in there. Well, and he's also like a big director. He
actually is one of the big co-founders of Pixar. Mm-hmm. So he was actually a really avid fan of Miyazaki's, and actually a good friend of his. So
apparently, are they actually friends?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that. I wonder if it's more just Miyazaki being kind and smiling and patting the head of this silly American. But I don't know. Maybe. I hope they are friends. That'd be wonderful.
I think whenever they were first starting on Pixar and things like that, doing like Toy Story and stuff, he actually, whenever I read, they said that he actually would try and correspond with Miyazaki to ask for like, hey, like, what would you do with this? Or kind of some things like that. And get some advice, because he wanted to have that authentic feeling to it, which you get that in the first Toy Story. Like, I think that's what
that's a very good a very good movie.
And that's what you get whenever you try to pour your heart into something. I think that's what Miyazaki was really trying to, like, he kind of pointed him in that direction to try to say, hey, if you're going to go forward with this, you want to sink your heart into something. Yeah. That's the whole point of these films.
Well, Miyazaki is like a legend. He is like the best. So if I were making any animated film, and if I had any way to contact him, I would use him as my mentor.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
please,
absolutely.
I will pay you.
Try to get as much info from him as possible.
Cookies or money, like, I don't know.
Cigarettes,
whatever.
probably. It's more of his goal. Yeah. Get him some old cheapo Japanese cigarettes. So.
Well, I knew that John Lasseter does, like, we have a lot of the DVDs of Studio Ghibli films, and John Lasseter does, like, the intros for a lot of them. If you watch, like, in the special scenes or, added features, and he talks about the film. So I knew he was very connected. Like, it's something he really cares about.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of dubbing, but I do think, like, it's good that we have that option to open it up to more audiences, and I'm glad that somebody's trying to get it into the U.S. and get it. Or,
unfortunately, it's like I said, a lot of people have that problem with just reading subtitles.
Well, and some people actually have dyslexia or have issues where they can't. So
that's why it serves a purpose. But,
oh yeah, definitely. So, I'm glad it's done.
Yeah. So after he kind of put the bug in Walt Disney Pictures' ear about that, they were basically like, "Hey, we'll finance part of the film."
Did you say it was 10% they financed?
10%.
That makes
simply
a difference.
for distribution rights into the United States, and the
first right to like dub it.
The first right to either to choose to dub it or not. So that basically says they have to come to Studio Ghibli had to come to the Walt Disney first and say, hey, do you want to dub this? If Walt Disney's like, nah, they could actually go to somebody else.
Yeah. But they had to ask Disney first.
But is Disney going to say no to that?
I mean,
no, they'd already worked with them before. So it's like
they were experts.
They knew what they were doing. So, obviously, as is Studio Ghibli, after they started production, they had all the financing set up. They did their traditional hand drawn stuff. So this is actually something I don't know if you knew about this. Did you know this is actually the first film that they started to use 3D software?
I did not know that until I read on your script.
So they only did it to supplement some of the hand-drawn stuff, and they did it in very minor ways.
I can see where, like, when all that rain falls and it's like a flood, and then it's like beautiful sunny day, and they're on the train tracks and they look out across the water. Yeah. Like, I feel like they do that in Howl's Moving Castle also, just like with the water, you can kind of see, like, that is where I would put my money on, that if they did, like, some computer generated, like, it was in that part.
Well, Miyazaki was
like backgrounds.
Miyazaki was adamant that it would not dominate the film.
Amen.
So that was one of the biggest things.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Miyazaki-san. I don't know if I can even call him that. I forget the san and all that.
That's okay.
Anyway.
But no, so he had after trying to like get the storyboard starting on it, just take a guess how long was the film do you think he had initially whenever he first
I read that. You said like over 3 hours.
It was around 3 hours in length.
I really wish that they had been able to keep that because I want to know what else he was going to add to that story. Because I would have loved to have seen more. Like Spirited Away is such a compelling story. It's so good. And I would love to have seen what he was going to add in. Because when I saw that 3 hours, I was like, man, we got gypped.
I know. It's okay. It happens. But so due to that, they start cutting things. And obviously, you get to what you have right now. And that brings us actually into the plot section. Do you want to try and...
You want me to summarize it?
Because I have a lot of information on the plot if you really want me to do it.
Yeah, I kind of skimmed through that. It's up to you. I mean, if you want, I can give a real brief summary and you can fill in.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's start at the beginning and just kind of do the first initial scene wherever her family...
So, Chihiro is... do they say how old she is?
She's 10 years old.
She's 10, okay. She and her parents are moving and she is depressed because she doesn't want to move and leave her friends. And they're driving along and her dad is kind of crazy because he gets lost. They can see the house up on the hill and he's like, there it is. But he keeps driving and he said, here's a shortcut. And they end up like in the woods in the middle of nowhere. And they get to where he almost doesn't rear end, but like rams into this statue.
Yeah.
And that's leading into a tunnel, and then it's when this is not going to be a very short summary.
That's okay. You do it how you feel like you want to do it.
Well, because I mean, I can just visualize all this, but they go into the tunnel, and that's when it's gorgeous. Like when they come out on the other end, like these beautiful fields and all these old like statues in the fields, like almost just big like circular rocks that they don't mention, but he can see like up on the hill there's like another building, and the father, that's when he says in the English dub like, oh, this was an old amusement park. And it's been so long since I watched it, I can't remember in the subtitled one what they call it, but they talk about, it was this is an abandoned theme park.
I believe they called it like it's an old abandoned bathhouse town.
Yeah, he says that, they built all these in the early 90s and then they went bankrupt because the economy or blah, blah, blah. So it's the mom and the dad are like so excited. Let's explore. And, we have time. Maybe there's a restaurant somewhere. And Chihiro is, even then, like you can tell she's uncomfortable. And she's like, I don't like it here. Like something's not right. Like, can we leave? And they're like, no, don't be a stick in the mud. Come on.
Yeah, come on. Let's go
adventuring. Yeah, and then that's when they get to like the town part of it. And there's steam coming up from one of the restaurants, and then the dad is like, oh, yeah,
smell?
I can see him sniffing when you do that. He's like,
well,
maybe it's not abandoned after all. He's like, maybe they're still here. So that's when the mom and the dad go to the restaurant, and there's nobody around, but there's all this food, and they say, well, let's just start eating. He's like, because they call and nobody comes, and they said, we'll just, we'll pay for the bill when we're done. And Chihiro won't do it. She's like, no. And then the mom and dad, it's funny that when they start eating, it's like they get sucked in and they just can't stop. And then she asks them to leave and they won't. Mm-hmm. And they stop talking to her. And so she's like, that's when she wanders off.
Wanders off a little bit, yeah.
And that's basically, she meets Haku at that point, and the young boy, who's a shapeshifter, can turn into a dragon. I guess just go ahead and throw that out there, but you don't know that yet.
You've had the thing has been out for almost 20 years, I think.
Yeah, it's okay to say that. But then he sees her and is like, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. Like, it's almost nightfall. This is bad. You need to leave."
Yep.
And he's like, "I'll distract them," and is trying to help her. And then that's when the sun starts setting, and then all the spirits start coming out.
Well, then that freaks her out, doesn't it?
Yeah, and she freaks the heck out, which, I mean, who wouldn't? It's like these black shapes, nebulous things coming up out of the ground.
Are,
and this is a part where I feel like, in a way, I wish I had grown up in Japan, that these are cultural things that I don't quite understand.
It's a very, like, Shinto religion. Like, there are spirits in everything almost.
Yeah, and it's something where it's like, from my cultural background and perspective, my childhood, that to me, I don't understand it. I'm fascinated by it, and I want to know more.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's something where there's, in certain aspects of his movies, I feel like, oh, God, I wish I was Japanese. And then I would really get this.
And then you would watch an American movie and you're
and
like,
be like, this is trash.
What is wrong going on? This makes no sense.
So she tries to escape. She runs back to, and I guess I should have mentioned, as they're coming in, they go through like an old riverbed that's dry.
Yep.
Well, she gets back to it and it's full of water.
Yep.
And she like starts to run in and it's up to her waist and she has to run back out. And then here comes this boat with all these spirits on it. And that's when she realizes she's going transparent. Yeah. And she starts freaking out.
Well, so does she run by the restaurant beforehand?
She does, yeah, because that's when she sees her parents as pigs.
She tries to go get her mom and dad.
Yeah, and they're still in her clothes, but they're both giant pigs, and then they don't recognize her, and they just squeal, and then the one spirit comes out with like the fly swatter and is smacking the dad in the face.
Trying to get him to go into the pen.
Yeah, and like, well, no, he's just trying to get him away from the food because they're still at the bar eating food, and he's like smacking him in the face, and it's just like bam, bam, and then the dad like falls down with a squeal, like this giant pig in like man's clothing, and that for her, she's horrified, and it's just like.
I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, what
scared
is going
me?
on?
Yeah, and I was like, I guess I was a preteen when I saw it, and as a small child to see that, it's like, oh my God, horrifying. So that's, she had run past her parents, then she goes to try and get across the water, like Haku said, you got to get back, you got to cross the river. Yeah. And she's missed it, and she can't. Yeah, and then that's when she goes and hides. But after she sees spirits getting off the boat, and there's like giant chicken-looking ones. I remember, well, they're kind of like giant ducks.
Well, they all start to go from being nebulous to being
and as soon as they take a step, like on the side of the bank, they start materializing, and there's some that are just floating papers, and then as they cross, it's like these bodies come down like from the paper. That's probably beautiful like imagery.
That's a very Japanese thing.
Yeah, like, see, that's more of it where it's like I wish I understood more of what this is.
Because whenever we think of ghosts or spirits, we're thinking like Slimer from the Ghostbusters, or
well, maybe not
all those malevolent ghosts from
or like I just think of something like in a graveyard where it looks like a human and it's but just transparent, like bluish glaring at
like
you.
In there, it could be, they could literally take any form they want.
Yeah.
Even though maybe they did come from like a human spirit, but it could literally be, that chicken could be a human spirit, but for whatever reason he wants to look like a chicken. Who knows?
It's fascinating. And so, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, so we can let's take a little break here and kind of get in there, and so
we've seen so far.
So what we've seen so far on all that stuff. So there's some really heavy themes already even in there. So like you see a lot of, obviously the spiritualism and the supernatural fantasy orient things in there. Like obviously with the abandoned town, how it's like, even though it's been abandoned by humans, the spirits still keep it alive and it's still thriving in the spirit realm almost.
Well, and it's fascinating because like sometimes, they talk about how children know things that adults have forgotten.
Yeah. And
I see that because it's like Chihiro knows the minute they walk in there. Even when they first arrive, her dad almost rams into that statue with the car. And even looking at that statue, she's like, no, we shouldn't be here. And it's like she knows innately. And it's like the adults have forgotten like these things that as a child, like to fear things. You are more in touch with like the spirit world. I feel like that's something that you read in literature, you see in films, and like children have this connection that adults growing up, maturity makes us forget because we have so many other things on our plates. But because she throughout the whole like beginning part, she's telling her parents like, go back, like stop, I don't want to be here. And she begrudgingly follows them, but she doesn't want to be there. It's like she knows.
So they kind of
it's like this child, like a connection. I don't know, to me a theme of like what, like being a child and things that children can remember that adults don't.
So kind of going into that, all kind of going off of what the parents like don't pay attention to. They have a really heavy theme in there. I was kind of reading a little bit that Miyazaki had really wanted to kind of emphasize the idea about greed.
Yeah, definitely.
With especially with adults. Consumerism heavily.
Well, because her parents That's
why he said he even said it. That's why I chose the forms of I wanted them to be pigs. And I was just like, that makes a lot more sense. Like I'd never thought about that before I watched it, and before even researching this, I was like, I just thought he's like, pigs.
Well, and it's to me like a fairy tale thing. Yeah, the parents break the rule, and it's like a politeness rule of you don't just randomly eat food laying there.
Yep.
Like you don't do that. Like that's somebody's food. That's rude. You have to wait and ask.
It's very reminiscent of Greek mythology of like Circe, when she turns the Homer's men into animals because they act. She goes, remember her? It's saying there like I believe it was they act like animals, so they will be animals. And so she turns them into, like, mostly pigs, I believe.
Yeah.
But she's changed all these other men into pigs or animals, because that's how they act.
Yeah. Well, and it's like the child knows, like, it's like a taboo thing. Like, you don't just go up and eat food, and the parents make an excuse. It's like making excuses, too, because they just make the excuse, we'll pay after we eat. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll make it okay.
Yeah.
That's a theme that I see too, is like, let's just, I'm an adult, I can do what I want, and I can make this okay, and I can bend the rules and break them, and I'll make it okay.
Yep. And you can't do that.
Yeah, and especially in like something like the spirit world where it is like, there's
rules.
Good and bad, and there are rules, and if
rules
you don't follow
concrete
them, you literally die.
In the spirit world. It's very Harry Dresden of you, Jackie.
Yes.
Rules are very concrete. I mean, you make a bargain, you stick to it no matter what.
Exactly, yeah.
So we'll continue with the story. So after she's figured out that she's going transparent and she's kind of moving to the spirit world. That's when Haku
comes back. Well, I don't think she knows what's happening to her, because I think imagine the distress of your parents are pigs. You're somewhere you don't know. You can't get home. You're going transparent.
Yeah, you're like, what the heck?
And that's when Haku comes and he gives her like a berry and says like, you need to eat something from our world, otherwise you will fade away. And he said, don't worry, this won't turn you into a pig. Because it's like, okay, but eating that other spirit food would have transformed you.
Maybe it's a thing of he's offered it to her.
Yeah, that's
as opposed to her taking it. So
yeah, and thank God he's there, because then he helps her. It's he's the one who helps sneak her into the bathhouse, but they're crossing that bridge, and he's like, if you hold your breath, they won't see you.
Yep, and she does hold her breath.
Well, she does until that stupid frog comes running up and jumps up right in front of him and says, Master Haku, you're back. And then she takes a gasp, and then they all see her, and they're like, human! Like, you shouldn't be here.
And then he has to run her down into the boiler area.
And the boiler area.
So she ends up meeting probably one of my favorite characters in the whole movie.
Yamaji?
It's Kamaji.
Kamaji. Oh, I love Kamaji. And he's Spider-Man.
The spider guy. He's
with
got like
a huge mustache.
Yeah. He kind of
and the little soot sprites that eat the stars. If
your dad ever hears this, I apologize, but he kind of reminded me of your dad a little bit, just from the nose and the glasses.
Yes, yeah.
And he's kind of got bald head.
Yeah, he does.
And so it's funny because he's just very always like, I'm working.
He's so mean to her when she first comes in there, and like Haku's like, no, he'll like, you have to keep asking. He'll try and turn you away, but you have to keep asking, and he'll give you a job. And he's just like, no, and keeps ignoring her, and then she starts trying to move like the coal pieces to put in the boiler, and it's like so freaking heavy. Yeah, the little soot sprites, because what does she do? One of them drops it, and she picks it up, and he says, finish what you started, human, because she was going to set it back down, I guess, and the little soot sprites are watching her. And then, because the one tripped and it fell on him. And so that's what she picks up, and she eventually lugs it to the boiler, tosses it in. And it's this little thing, but it must be so heavy, like the way she's moving.
Yeah.
Which is funny because just, in the spirit world, everything's different.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's lovely because after she gets it thrown in there, all the little soot sprites look at her. And one of them looks at the others, and then it tosses. It lets the rock fall on its own head and goes, brr, brr,
acts like,
I'm helpless. Like, and then they all do it. Like, oh, she'll pick it all up and she'll do it for all of us. And then Kamaji is like, no. It's like,
you've ruined my system.
You've ruined my workers. And then that's when Lin comes in.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, this is my granddaughter. You have to give her a job.
Yep.
And
Lin is like, actually, she looks like a human, but I guess she's a spirit.
But she's a spirit. They're all spirits.
She's a bathhouse worker there.
Yeah. She is wonderful. She's very nice. Though she acts super mean at first.
Oh, yeah. She's going to act all tough and things like that.
Yeah, she kind of takes Chihiro under her wing, but she's the one that takes Chihiro up because she has to meet Yubaba to get a job there.
Old Yubaba.
With the big nose and the creepy eyes and the huge head. Head as big as her body.
That's right.
And then don't even get me started on her son.
So weird.
I know. Like it is just interesting. That's cultural things where I feel like, man, I love this. I'm fascinated by this, but would I understand this better if I were Japanese?
So something that they kind of they put in there. So after Yubaba tries to after they hire her, they basically tell her, since you are going to work for us now, we have to rename you. They take part of her name away. The character. And that's something, too, that if you don't know Japanese, like she writes her name down and Yubaba lifts part of the name away. Yeah. So what's left is just Sin. Yep. Whereas, like, with the rest of the characters, it's Chihiro. Yep. But she takes away part of her name and it's like holds it in her hand and it's like, you're mine now. It's like, it's very much a fairy like contract kind of thing. It is, yeah. And it's like, I always felt bad like watching it when I see that happen. It's like, no, little girl, but then what option does she have? Yep. It's like you're trapped there. What can you do? Yeah, how do I get away? Yeah, and it's like so that kind of touches on that consumerism and greed a little bit too. Yubaba wants to own everybody that works for her. Yeah. And she always wants to have them on contract. So that's, like I said, he touches on these little things throughout too. So as she's leaving, Haku kind of like meets up with her, and I remember him saying, so don't forget your name. If you forget your name, you'll never be able to leave. He tells her that a little bit later because when he pretends like he doesn't recognize her and it hurts her feelings, but he's doing that to protect her. But as a small child, she doesn't understand that because he doesn't want Yubaba to think, see the connection that he's trying to help her. And because you don't find out till later in the movie why, like, he knows who Chihiro is and he knows her and he cares about her. And then later on, they explain why that is. But she, just for the time being, it's like, just a good fortune that, oh my gosh, the one person here is helping you. Besides Lin and Kamaji. But yeah, eventually, Lin then takes her back and they start working and she helps at the bathhouse. Yeah, she ends up coming with a bathhouse worker. She moves up from the boiler room and starts working on cleaning the tubs and doing the laundry and things like that. When they complain about, all the other workers complain about how she smells. And I think Haku is the one that says, after a few days of eating our food, you won't notice the smell anymore. Yeah. And they're like, I don't want the human. And they stick her with Lin. So she's with Lin most of the time. And Lin at first is like, whatever. Acts like she doesn't like her. But eventually she kind of, it's like a big sister relationship. Oh, yeah. And tries to take care of her. So do you remember, like, so as she's working there, she starts to meet all the different clients. Different clients. And you remember the most famous client that shows up? You're talking about No Face? Yeah. Well, but he's not a client. No, really. He's not. He's not supposed to be. He's another part where I feel like that's an aspect of Japanese culture that like almost like an evil spirit almost. Yeah, but it's like he's not. She talks about, and again, this is the dubbed version. That's the one I remember the most because I guess growing up I saw it the most. But she mentions in the dubbed version that I just think he shouldn't be here because being in the bathhouse makes him crazy. Yeah. And so it's like when he's outside of it, he's fine. And especially near the end when he ends up with Yubaba's sister, he's fine. But yeah, she lets him in because she thinks he's just standing out there in the rain. And she lets him in. And that's when all heck breaks loose. Well, yeah, she puts him in there and... Yeah, like you said, he starts offering gold to people and then eating them. That's a little bit later, so he just kind of spends some time in there, and he just kind of like it seems like it slowly works on him a little bit. And
well,
like
because they don't show any of that. Like, they just show him enter, and then you don't see him for a little while until...
So, in between that, do you remember...
The river spirit
that
she saves.
Yeah.
She's helping Lynn, and they call him a stink spirit at first because they don't know that's what he is. You know, it's this giant oozing pile of like poo. It's just like mud and nasty, and he comes
just things.
It just looks like a giant blob, and he's got a mouth, and he's like, and he comes in, and all the other clients are like running away, like, and the other workers, and Lynn and Chihiro are the only ones left, and then Lynn is like, oh, or no, it's Yubaba is there, because she tries to get him to go away, but then she's like, Chihiro, go take the nice spirit's money. And Chihiro goes over, it's like, hello, sir. And he drops, like, in all the mud, like and it's this splooching noise, and these coins fall into her hand covered in mud. And she's like, take him and give him a bath and get him out of here. So Chihiro, because Lynn wasn't with her, Lynn comes running down with their dinner, and the dinner, like, wilts. Or it just gets, like, black when the stench of the spirit touches it. And Lynn's like, no, our food. And Chihiro has to go give the poor guy a bath. Yeah. But she's the one that figures out that he's got, like, she's like a thorn in his side, but it's a bicycle, and it's... Like, Lynn helps her, they pull it out, and then it's a pollution. Yep. And all this stuff, all this trash comes oozing out. And then it's a river spirit. Yep. And he's this beautiful, huge thing, and you just hear, and you see his face floating, and he gives Chihiro a gift. Yeah. And
it's they call it a, let's see here.
It's like a green ball.
Gets a magic emnetic dumpling. Emetic?
How do you spell it?
Emetic. Emetic dumpling.
Well, and I think, doesn't emetic mean like what do you call the things where you like hose out your rear?
That's a suppository.
No, it's a thing.
No, it's
you know what I'm talking about? It's
an
enema.
Enema.
I feel like that's what it is, but she doesn't know that. It's something to like make you throw up or clean you out.
It's a causing vomiting.
A vomit-inducing thing.
That's what it is.
But she doesn't know that's what it is. It's just she thinks it's a gift, and well, it is a gift it's fascinating because it's like that he knows she's gonna need it or something because of No Face. But then he goes away, and when he leaves, like people start finding gold. And that's where the gold fever starts. And they're all like, gold, gold, gold. Which, going back to your consumerism and the greed.
So that's what he does. He No Face would create the gold.
Well, yeah, because the No Face, that's when there's that little frog sneaking into the bath that the river spirit had used, looking for gold. And that's when No Face is there, and he offers the gold. But he's like, like holding his hand out with the gold in it. And the frog's like, you're giving me gold. And then he eats him. Yep. Just consumes them, and it's just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, and then he takes the frog's voice, and then he starts telling everybody like, hey, I'm giving you gold, and they're like, oh, like, give me a bath, bring me food, and he keeps eating and eating and eating and eating, and I guess Yubaba is away, because at some point in between there, like, Haku gets injured, because it's like he stole the seal, like this... Yep. Little thing, not a like Arf seal, but like a little emblem thing from Yubaba's sister. What is her name again? I forget her name. I cannot remember. It's something, it's not that many syllables. It's like Yizel or something. I don't remember. But
twin sister.
Yeah, her twin sister.
Zeniba.
Okay, so it is the same amount of syllables. Yeah. Yubaba, Zeniba. Yeah, Zeniba.
Because Bo is her son. Is Yubaba's son.
The big one.
The big fat baby, yeah.
Yeah, because Zeniba comes, but just as like sends like a transparent shade of herself. Yeah. And I'm getting all mixed up in the timing here, but that's okay. Chihiro ends up trying to, I guess, talk to Yubaba, and she sees Haku is all injured and bloodied on the floor.
Yeah. She tries to help him.
Yeah, but then those 3 green head things are trying to push him into the pit. Yeah, like in the floor. They don't think anything to kill him. He's done for. Yeah. And Chihiro's trying to fight him off, before that, she had to hide in the baby's room, the giant fat baby.
That's such a dumb baby.
He's huge. Well, he ends up being good, but he's there, and then that's when Zeniba's spirit comes and is like, Haku is a thief, and he stole my seal, and then she turns the big fat baby into a fat little mouse, very tiny, and turns the scary bird crow with the woman's face, or the old person face, she turns that into like a little fly thing. And then she turns the three green heads into the baby. And like to trick Yubaba that, the baby's still there. The baby the size of like an elephant.
Yeah, that's such a dumb...
Well, it's just fascinating because that's another thing, like, wow, that's so interesting. And the three bouncing heads they just go, and they don't open their mouth and talk, but they look with their eyes. Just like that crow bird doesn't talk, just like moves his or her eyes. It's just so bizarre. Yeah, and then it's like Chihiro gets basically... the fat mouse and the little fly bond with her, and they stick with her, and she's...
the whole time, yeah.
She's trying to save Haku. Like, they fall into the pit all together, and he wakes up and is able to fly them out.
Yeah, and he actually gets them... I remember, so it's like they get him out of there, and he goes back, and they take Haku... to the boiler room.
Kamaji, because Haku is like...
he's still injured.
Very injured. And I guess he still has the seal inside of him. Like, he had a curse. There's a curse on it. He had eaten it.
Yeah, and so she feeds him part of the dumpling to make him vomit out.
Because she had some of that the first night she got it with Lynn. And Lynn is like, what's wrong? And then she just starts puking. Like, whoa. Yeah. So she's like, okay, take some of this medicine.
Yeah.
So she gets Haku to puke it up.
And then she ends up destroying the seal.
Yeah. Well, she steps on the curse on accident.
The curse, that's what it is.
Yeah, and then Kamaji is like, oh, my gosh, that's, I had to do this, like, thing, like, put your fingers together and, like, cuts his hand through them to, like, break the curse of, like, that's bad luck.
It's bad luck. So while Haku is actually unconscious, that's whenever... Sen actually goes to confront No Face.
No Face, so Yubaba realizes, like, because I guess Yubaba had been gone, and then she comes back.
Yeah.
She does the weird thing where she, like, has her coat on, and she, like...
turns into, like, a harpy.
She turns into, like, a bird. She, like... It's just funny, and she just flies away. But I guess she's come back, and she's realized they're all looking for No Face. Like, this guy, he shouldn't have been in here. Like, he's a bad spirit. Like, he's eating people. He needs to go, and then
by the time she figures this out, he's enormous.
Yeah, and he's already eaten like 3 people.
Yeah.
And all the spirits are scared because they're like, he's just going to eat us. And Chihiro goes to talk to him, and he so desperately wants her affection.
Yeah.
And it's like he keeps offering her gold, and he stops talking to her, and she's like, no, I don't know you, because he's offered her things before, and she ignores it. And it's like, she's like, no, I don't need that. And it's, I think in a way, he's like, he wants friendship, but he doesn't know how to get it. And she does say, well, if you want to eat me, you can, but first eat this medicine. I think you need it. And she gives him the emetic thing, and then he just starts puking, and he's like, Chihiro or Sin, what have you done?
Yeah, and everybody that he's eaten,
he pukes them out, and they're all like,
eaten, it's like all whole still, and it's gross, and I'm just
a lot of the food comes back as like just this like black sludge, but the people come back as like how they normally are.
Yeah, and so like she leads him out of the bathhouse.
Yeah, and I remember he ate the people after he first offered her gold, because Yubaba's gone, and like the one spirit guy who actually is voiced by John Lasseter in the English dub, he's dancing in front of the spirit. He's like, here comes the rich man. He's something. He has this goofy song, like he keeps getting bigger, so there's plenty left to fill or something. But he's the one who.
I remember it being really goofy.
Yeah, that's when Chihiro comes running through, and No Face sees her and like shoves the people out of the way and tries to offer her gold and doesn't talk to her, but it's just like, like, I want to be your friend, and she's like, no, I'm sorry, I don't have time, because I think she's looking for Haku.
Yeah.
And then that's when she runs away and No Face gets sad, and that's when he eats the 2 people.
Yeah.
And they all start freaking out like, oh my god, he's a monster.
Yeah. And then so after she gets rid of No Face, she kind of
she gets him to follow her out of the bathhouse because they need him out of there.
Yeah, so Zeniba kind of reveal so what is it
so what happens is they get on
a train.
The train because she has the seal that came out of Haku, and she's going to go return it to Zeniba.
Yeah.
And so it's her and the little fat mouse / baby, like Yubaba's son, and the little fly thing. And it's the 3 of them, and they're going to go, and they get on this creepy train. It's really kind of fascinating. Beautiful music. No Face gets on there with them, follows them, because she's standing there, and it's really interesting because Komaji had given her the train tickets, and he said something like, I was saving these, but I want you to have them. And it's kind of for a spirit, it makes you wonder, well, where do they go?
Like, does that take you
is
to,
that
like,
the afterlife or something?
Is it a better place?
Because he makes it sound so dramatic of giving her the tickets of this is a big deal, but he gives her the 4 tickets he had, and so the creepy conductor, because the people on that train are just formless shadows in outfits, but they don't talk. And the conductor comes and points at her, points at the mouse, points at the fly, and then points over, and you see No Face has joined them. And she's like, oh, you want to come too? Sure, he's coming. And then the 4 get on the train, and they go to the last stop, and it has a name, Swamp Bottom or something, and that's where they get off to go to Zeniba's house.
Yep. And that's when they go talk to her.
And Zeniba's so nice. And
she's like complete opposite of
she's like
Yubaba.
A grandmother and like, come in. And she makes Chihiro this beautiful little like hair tie thing that's like supposed to protect her. No Face decides to stay with her because he's like helping. Yep. He's learning how to, what's he using? Like the spindle? He's like spinning thread for her. And she's like, you're really good at this. And
she kind of like, I'm going to keep you here.
It's really fascinating because when you first see Zeniba, just as her like transparent form, she's hateful and mean and the same as her sister, and they look identical. Yeah. And she's saying, Haku stole. He's a petty thief. But she's so scary and like just an evil, evil witch like her sister. But then when they go to her house, it's like she's completely different. And it almost makes me wonder why, like, well, why the change there? And I don't know, is it the bathhouse that does it?
I don't know. Fascinating. It could be that because, like I said, that's a very consumerist, like kind of like area,
the
like
greed.
You come in and greed and things like that. But yeah, maybe it's that. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to tell what Miyazaki was trying to put in there or what he was trying to.
We need that extra hour and a half, man.
I know. I'm telling you, you should totally petition that for the full release of it. And so after all that, Haku shows up and he like transforms into his dragon form.
Yeah, well, he's there as a dragon because Zeniba says, "Oh, and I think Haku's just arrived," and it's like she tells him to take good care of Chihiro, and she even tells the fat mouse and the little fly thing, well. She said, you two, the curse on you is long gone. You two can change back whenever you want. And they just kind of shake their heads.
Yep.
And then, Haku, that's when he comes and Chihiro's so happy to see him. And he's like, I'll take you back. And that's when they're flying back to the bathhouse. And Chihiro tells him, I think that I remember you. And she says, there used to be a river by my house that I would play in, and I think that was you. So
you kind of start to think, like, maybe he's a river spirit, too.
Yeah, and then when she says that, because the river's name, because, Yubaba takes your name, and she took Haku's name. Yep. It's Kowahu or something is the actual name.
Kohaku, yeah.
Kowaku. She says, and I think that this was what the river was called, and I think that's your name. And she says it, and then his eyes get huge, and it's like he remembers. The scales all fly off of him. It's very beautiful.
It's very.
And this is the only thing where I don't like the English dub, because she talked about how she had fallen in the river after trying to get her shoe, but the river, like she it carried her back to the shore. And then Haku says, I remember you and your little pink shoe. And I know they do that because it has to match up with the mouse, but that's the only part of the movie where the dub, I just feel like, ugh, is that really what he said? And it just,
kind of just rubs you
it doesn't work. But the whole,
okay.
like, the idea of it is very beautiful of, like, he was the river spirit and he saved her. Like, she could have drowned and he saved her and took her back to shore. They had this connection. Very beautiful. Because then they're, like, falling through the sky talking and they're both crying and it's so beautiful. Very good.
So after they get back to the bathhouse...
And that's when she's going to get her parents back, and she knows her name.
Yeah, Yubaba is trying to basically say, I'll lift the curse if you can pick out which
pigs are your parents. That's going to be the challenge.
Even
though Chihiro comes back and she says... Because at that point, Yubaba has realized her son is gone, and she's freaking out. And Chihiro is like, well... Here they are, and then the little mouse and I think the little fly doesn't turn back into a character, but he doesn't turn back into his crow form, but then the mouse turns into the huge fat baby and is like, Mama, and she's like, oh my gosh, and he gets mad and he says, you give Chihiro back her parents. You be nice to her. And she's like, but honey, and it's, again, that's almost like the spirit world thing where she's made this thing of it's like I've made this contract, I have to go through with it, and the little kid is mad like he doesn't understand, but Chihiro's like, no, I'll do it, I'll face your challenge. And all the spirit workers are like, oh no, like they're all rooting for her. They all
kind of know though this is a trick though.
Yeah, but Chihiro goes and looks at all the pigs in the pen. There's like 8 of them maybe, and she's supposed to pick out her parents, and she looks and looks and looks, and then she tells Yubaba, there must be a mistake, none of these pigs are my parents. And all the pigs like flip and turn, and Yubaba's like, are you sure? And she says yes, or she nods her head, and then the pigs turn into spirit workers and they're like, you did it! And then everybody's like cheering, yay! And Yubaba's like, ugh.
She's kind of mad.
Yeah.
So then they go...
Because she lost.
Yeah, and then so she kind of like, after that, she's like, well, just go back and you'll meet your parents. Basically,
yeah, go back, retrace your footsteps, go back, cross the river, and your parents will be there. I forget if the parents are across the river or if they're...
They are across the river, so they kind of like...
The river
is dry now.
That's like the separation between the worlds.
And so it kind of almost says like, so now that the river is dry, you can go back to the real world. And Haku kind of walks her back there. And
he's like, I won't forget you.
I won't forget you.
Don't forget your name.
But like the minute she walks across the dry riverbed, he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's really kind of sad, but
she's left the spirit world.
She's left the spirit world, which is his world, and that's where he has to be at. And she kind of walks down and walks through the tunnel, and then she runs into, it's like right before the tunnel. She walks across the field and her parents are like there at the tunnel. They're like, where did you go?
Just real confused.
And they're like, where did you go? We don't know where you went. And then she's just like trying to tell them everything that happened. And they're like,
no, I don't think she doesn't. She just says like, I like Mom, Dad, and she's so happy to see him. And she's like, let's go home. And they go like walking through the tunnel together.
Yeah.
And
well, she was trying to ask him like where they were. They're like, well, I remember.
Or they don't remember.
Well, they said they remember. They say that they remember. They go, we went to that restaurant, but I don't remember what happened after that. And it's like they kind of like leave it at that, and it's like, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense. But then they obviously go back to their car, and then they take off.
Well, I remember the mom saying like as they're walking through the tunnel, it's like mysterious, and it's like a passage between worlds, and the mom is saying like, Chihiro, you're pulling too tight on my hand, or she's like holding on to her mom so tight, and it's like, don't squeeze so tightly. But then it's like, how could you not after everything that happened?
Yeah, I would be freaking out. So.
Well, and you just made me think of it. You said a bit ago the river is dry. Remember after the rains came and all the flood? And because when Chihiro is going to Zeniba's and it's just water everywhere. And there's so much water, the train tracks are hardly visible.
Yeah, it's like spraying up on the sides. Yeah, I remember that.
It's amazing. So I wonder, some kind of spiritual significance of water in like the spirit world, and then the water drains away.
Have you ever seen in the Shinto religion? Have you ever seen it? They do the posts. You see, it's usually two. I cannot remember what they're called for the life of me, but they're literally two posts, and then they have the bow on top. In between on top of it. So a lot of those, they have those in areas like near water, because apparently water helps provide a pathway into the spirit realm.
world.
And so that's
That's
do
the
that.
connection.
That they do that. Yeah, that's a religious, that's a Shinto thing from what I remember correctly. But
water is life. Water is flowing. Water is moving.
yep, it's a pathway into there. So that's the kind of supernatural kind of theme that he has on there. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much the.
That was a really long plot. Sorry.
Hey, that was great though.
That was not much of a summary. That was just
no.
Let me tell you the entire movie and what happens.
You did great. I was like, I'm gonna sit back and enjoy this because you were doing a heck of a job, and like I said, I only interjected a few times, but that was phenomenal. So obviously, like I said, they helped after they came up with this whole thing that Miyazaki was like, I'm gonna do 3 hours and like cut it. And then obviously the amazing summer that you just did, they released it in Japan in July 20th of 2001.
Didn't it like go insane, right?
Yeah, it's grossed more money than any other Japanese film in Japanese history.
Well, and that's something where I feel like too, all those cultural aspects that are just something where it's like if you grew up understanding these things and this is kind of like the fairy tale that you heard, something like that, it would be very like fascinating. And it's just a good story, and Chihiro is likable and you feel for her and like the childhood innocence.
Well, I mean, by this point Miyazaki has established himself as an amazing creator.
Yeah, I think just the name,
I mean, that's what really sold
he's
it.
a juggernaut.
I mean, he's a juggernaut in Japan. I mean, it's just the way it is. So after they kind of pushed it, after this is released in Japan, it's almost a whole year before they get the dubbing done, and they actually release it at one of the Toronto International Film Festivals. That's where John Lasseter helped push it into there. That's where it actually is first released in September 7th, 2002.
Outside of Japan?
Outside of Japan. And then from there, obviously, it gets released to everywhere else. And it's done so well in like 2019. Worldwide grossing is $346 million. So obviously, it's one of the most financially successful animation properties of all time. I mean, it just truly is, especially with Studio Ghibli.
It's good reason. Yeah.
I mean, well, it's gorgeous.
It's beautiful. That is the one where if I mention Studio Ghibli, like especially when I was in college, I went to a nerd college. And just mentioning, if I mention Miyazaki or Ghibli, people are like, "Oh, Spirited Away! I freaking love that."
Well, that's because...
It's like the people that know about it know about that one.
That's because when Disney finally got behind it, because they had done one before, I believe this, with Studio Ghibli doing the dubbing, but they didn't really market it as much. This one, they heavily marketed it into audiences, finally released it in several theaters. Not as much as some of the other stuff that they did even afterwards, like Ponyo and Ponyo and a couple other ones that are more a little more juvenile in my opinion, but it is what it is.
I feel like Spirited Away, I mean, it has juvenile aspects, I guess because there's a kid as the protagonist, but on the whole there's some deep things going on there.
Oh, absolutely. But on top of the commercial success, obviously it's got unanimous like critical success among critics and audiences alike. So obviously, it garnered numerous awards throughout. I believe it actually won several. Let me see. I believe it won. Let's see, 2001. Hong Kong Film Awards, Japanese Academy Award for Best Film, Critics Award. I mean, it's all kind. I mean, looking at its list, if you go to its Wikipedia page, you can literally see just tons and tons of stuff. Basically, for best animated film and best director, the scores, it's just got a ton of accolades.
The music is amazing.
Well, it's just like everything that they do in there,
That Joe Hisaishi. I don't really speak Japanese, but I know that's who did it. I just don't know how to pronounce his name. I just know that because that's what Alexa says when I ask her to play. She says Joe Hisaishi. I'm like, okay, I was saying Joe Hisaishi, but I guess I don't know Japanese.
But yeah, so obviously, like I said, it's garnered so much unanimous critical success throughout the whole world. Yeah, it's just one of those great movies that I truly can't say anything bad about it.
The only thing I would say is I wish that they were able to keep the extra time, the extra hour and a half of material, because I would love to see what was going to happen. But
I'm sure they have things like, if you get like a Studio Ghibli art book or anything like that, they would have things like that.
I don't know that, because I don't think they filmed any of that stuff.
Well, they don't, but they still have
probably had sketches and
storyboards of it, so they would put it in a book and kind of say maybe what they had going on, maybe. But yeah, that's kind of the summary of the whole thing right there. I mean, so if you guys have any questions or concerns, if you guys want to check this out, if you've never seen this movie,
please watch it.
Watch it. Like I said, I always recommend trying to get it on. Like I said, you can get it on HBO Max. They have it. I think they have both versions on there actually. So the dubbed and the subbed versions. So yeah, just try it out, see what you like. And like I said, I want to probably cut this one short not short really, but because you're getting a little tired, I can tell. So, because you've literally just spent 30 minutes talking about the entire film on your own. So,
and I know you always want to end. I saw in your summary you had like final closing thoughts. I mean, I would say it's wonderful. It's up in, for me personally, My Neighbor Totoro is my absolute favorite because I grew up with it. But Spirited Away is second.
Yeah, top 10 for me too, yeah.
Almost everyone I talk to that is familiar with Ghibli, Spirited Away is like their favorite. Even my parents love this film. And my dad has a hard time watching animated films because in his mind it's just like juvenile.
It's for kids.
Yeah, because that's what, from the way he grew up, and that's what he saw. But he loves it. My mom loves it. Like they really appreciate that movie. So
and
I think
it's something that
anybody can like it. Little kids, adults, anybody.
Anybody of any age or any background,
even all cultures.
Can enjoy
like for us who are born, raised in the Midwest in the U.S., like to me, the cultural aspects I don't understand just fascinate me.
Exactly, that's kind of what I always
draws me in. I want to understand what these spirits are, and even the food they show. Like, that is fascinating to me. I want to try that food, like a bathhouse. I want to go there. I want to see what these things are. It makes me want to go to Japan. You? Like, this is fascinating. Like, I want to know more about this place because I love it.
Well, like I said, we'll have to put it in our mark it down for a few years from now. What do you say?
On the to-do list, go to Japan.
It's always on the to-do list.
Anyway, it rocks. It's a great
It was
great
amazing.
Film.
So I just want to thank you guys for listening in. And if, like I said, if you guys enjoy this episode, let us know. If there's anything we can do to add to it or make it better, please let us know by sending us either an email at seriouslypointlessconvo@gmail.com, or you can post on Facebook or any of our other social media sites and let us know. If these are the kind of things that you enjoy listening to us talk about, please let us know. If not, still let us know. If you think Miyazaki movies are dumb, we're not going to hold it against you, but we enjoy talking about them, and you can let us know either way. But I truly enjoy it. So, again, Jackie, I just want to say thanks for showing up and providing your, wealth of knowledge, because from only looking at the plot points for a few times, you just had that all stuck away in your brain somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. So that's what I loved about it. So, but anyways, so thanks for showing up, and we're gonna get out of here. All right, thanks, Jackie, for stopping by.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
All right, guys, have a nice one. Bye. If you're interested in keeping up to date with new episodes on our channel, add us on any of your favorite podcasting apps, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Seriously Pointless Conversations. If you have questions or concerns, please email us at seriouslypointlessconvo@gmail.com. We appreciate any feedback. Thank you for listening to our show.